The Advocates is sponsored by the Kessler Foundation, changing the lives of people with disabilities.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Advocates. I am your co-host Mark Iorio along with my good friend to my left here, Lisa Manioki. And The Advocates, Lisa, is brought to you by the Kessler Foundation.
Yes,
Our
they are.
friends there, they're doing lots and lots of great research on work with people with disabilities and just changing the world
Yep.
by the work that they're doing. But today we have Amber Nelms with us, and Amber is the CEO of Triangle ABA. And I'm just so happy to have Amber here on the program. Amber's doing so many great things for people with autism, and you know, that's what The Advocates is all about. It's really about
Yes.
people helping people, and Amber epitomizes that. So, Amber, welcome. Great to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
You're very
and
welcome.
the opportunity, so thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
All right. So I have been known to say
Yes.
that every challenge has a gift, as
Absolutely.
long as you're willing to look for it. And the sooner you start looking, the more inclined and likely you are to find it.
Yep.
And I think, Amber, it's fair to say that you had a challenge that has brought you a gift that has now resulted in this organization. So give us the backstory. Where did this all come from?
Sure, I'd love to tell you the story. Many years back, my son was actually diagnosed with autism, and struggling a ton. And I was searching all around to figure out, oh wow, what are we gonna do? Can't speak. I don't know what is the right treatment and the right help for him. And I happened to have my neurologist suggest applied behavior analysis as the right option for him. And I listened, and I got very, very, very lucky. The place that he referred me to was a BCBA owned center, which is different. I don't know if we'll have a chance to talk about that today, but it means somebody that really understands the science behind everything. And a lot of places are now owned by private equity and fully not clinicians. And so I got very lucky. Her heart was for the families and for the kids, and it really was clear with the treatment for my son. So he made a lot of progress, and he is now doing fantastic and is able to go to just normal school and have friends and have a life. But it really inspired me to go back to school. Once he had graduated out of the program around 6, he went back, went to typically developing school and everything. And I went ahead, started my coursework, and worked at the same place where he had gotten help. And then was able to become a board certified behavior analyst. And I spent time learning from others. And then Triangle ABA was born, because that was always a part of my desire and heart. Was I knew when I saw what had transformed and happened with my own child's life, I wanted more people to be able to access it. Because when you have, like you said, Lisa, when you have pain and you have difficulty, you don't just want to settle in that. You want to look to see, like, okay, what else can we do? How can we make the world a better place now? We figured out what works. This helps my life. Let me go and help other people. So that is what happened. And Triangle ABA, I'm really proud to say, is focused on our families and making sure the clients really make progress. But anyway, I could keep talking about that forever. So please let me know if that's what you were looking for.
Well,
because I have a lot to say.
That's
Always.
why we're here, Amber. We're here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Triangle ABA and how you're helping others and families go through the same basic process that you went through with your son, helping others to understand behaviorally how a child who is diagnosed with autism can flourish, and as Lisa said, become an absolute gift to others.
Hey, Lisa, I really want to thank you for stating that. I hope this doesn't take us off on too many points, but this is actually a really big thing because I really want to state this to any parents out there listening, and something I did not understand correctly about autism when my son was first diagnosed. I really like the gift part that you talked about. And when this is many years back, my son is 13 now, so he's much older. And I don't think at the time the world was as accepting about autism and as really seeing it, the huge unique factor it is, and blessing it is to have a child on the spectrum. So thank you for stating it that way. When I first found out, I did not. I will say I'm ashamed of my thought process originally was like, oh, I need to, fix this autism and I need to, change it. And I really have to say, Triangle ABA specifically is neurodivergent, accepting and understanding, and we promote that a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with that phrase, but basically, one of the core stances that we really make sure we talk to the families about and also talk about during helping and setting up programs is the fact that we are not trying to make the children with autism that come in, make them no longer autistic. They will always be autistic, but instead the goal is we want any barriers that are present to be alleviated so the world can see them and the wonderful, amazing person that they are, and they can see the world. Often there's a lot of children that have barriers in communication or difficulties in play, and they really, really would love to have friends and they would love to be able to talk about their needs and wants. So the goal is not to make them like everybody else. I mean, who would want that? The world is supposed to be made up of unique, interesting, different people, Yep. So thank you for bringing that up, because I don't even know in the beginning of our discussion, I probably captured that part, and that is a huge value that I stand by now, is that it's not about making everyone or any of my clients neurotypical. It's about just helping them live their best life. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for or not, but that was a big one, and I really appreciate your stance on that. It sounds like that's what you are also believing and thinking. So
it's definitely, it's really important. First of all, children with autism are frustrated. There's a communication hiccup. And parents who have children with autism are experiencing the same kind of frustration because it's difficult to reach and connect. So ABA is one way of many to access the relationship. So for those who don't know, please define what is ABA and explain how it works.
Sure, I'll do my very best. Well, ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And basically the applied stands for, it's very practical, at least it should be very practical in everyday life. Behavior is in regards to the fact that it's observable actions that we see. A lot of times people think of behavior, they think of something bad that is happening or some problem that is occurring. That's actually a big misnomer. I typically have to tell doctors and tell families, you don't necessarily, a lot of people think, oh, I only need ABA if my child has really difficult problem behavior. That is not why you come see somebody that is, able to help you with applied behavior analysis. You come see them because they're just really good clinicians at being able to teach behaviors such as speaking, right? Or going up and shaking somebody's hand. That is a behavior. And the analysis stands for, or I should say I could break down, the analysis is the fact that we take data on every single behavior, such as, okay, maybe one of the clients does not know how to, is not going to use verbal communication. They're going to use a device to communicate. So we might be taking data on how many times they push the button or Apple. And so we would analyze that and see the treatment or the intervention we put in place is effective. And so we take data every single time on that one behavior that we're tracking, and then we're looking at a graph to say, hey, this is working or it's not. And then we make changes. So that is it, basically in a nutshell. There's a lot of technical terms in the field. Another defining feature is the fact every time a behavior happens that we want to have happen, we add something awesome at the end. So therefore, the child will be more likely to want to do that behavior in the future. please let me know if there's anything else I could add to that. But I try to keep to the main points so people can get like the essence of what it truly is.
That was great. I mean, that was great for someone
Yeah.
who doesn't understand what ABA is. Amber, thank you for that. You mentioned a few minutes ago that a lot of these organizations are owned by private equity, and when you're BCBA certified and you are looking to have parents bring their child or the family to Triangle, how do you? It's sometimes it's hard because you're going up against these larger organizations that have this gigantic marketing budget, and they're out there promoting this constantly. But how do you, as the CEO of Triangle, how do you attract parents to come and work with you?
That's a really great question. I think I have two issues actually. Well, I should say, I think a lot of the families just love our story. So we don't actually have as much of an issue as one would think. I mean, obviously we don't have the budget to be like on Google at the very top or doing Google ads. So that is difficult. So I honestly, the answer is stories. I tend to, this is another big one. I meet and talk to any of the people that sign up on our website, and I talk to them on the phone for at least 15 minutes, and I go through some of the main things they need to think through when finding an ABA company. And I tell them, like, this is just general information. And I say, like, listen, I'm not going to even spend all my time promoting Triangle ABA. I just want you to have this information because education is power. Educating people to be able to know what is good and what's not. And I don't know that they're going to be not moving to another state soon. They might move to Pennsylvania in 2 weeks, and they could really use that information. So I always tell them, maybe you won't be a Triangle ABA family, but I can give you this information. So that's one thing that's very unique. I tend to go through all of the main core components they need to analyze. Another factor, I'm about to start a podcast that I think will help be able to just in general, because that's a big piece for me, is whether I want Triangle ABA to be successful, right, as the CEO, and that's a very big part in being a business owner. But this is beyond just the business for me. This is a large mission, and I also started a nonprofit too that's working to do this internationally. So I think that speaks to people. That's a big factor. It's our why, our values, and our mission that tend to be able to help. Like, we aren't just, there's a lot of other companies out there that say ABA and come on over here. They don't necessarily have their why solidified. So that's what we just hone in really heavily on and build everything out from there.
That's great. That is wonderful. Thank you for that. We're going to have to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back after this message from our wonderful sponsor, the Kessler Foundation. Don't go away, folks. We've got more with Amber Nelms after this message from our sponsor.
Okay.
The Advocates is sponsored by the Kessler Foundation, changing the lives of people with disabilities.
Welcome back to The Advocates. I'm your co-host, Mark Iorio, along with Lisa Magnoki, and thanks to the Kessler Foundation for that wonderful ad that we ran at the break. We're with Amber Nelms. Amber is the CEO of Triangle ABA, and it's a wonderful, this is perfect. This is why we started The
That's right.
Advocates. right here,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Amber helping not just her own family, but multiple other families.
Yep, and now we give you some reach. So an important feature of ABA and any services that parents are seeking when there is a mystery with their child is timing. Now, of course, early intervention is a word that's thrown around a lot, but it is certainly important. The sooner that you get assistance for your child, if there's some developmental issue evolving, then the better off you'll be in the long run, hopefully. So you said earlier that parents shouldn't come to you when there's a meltdown going on, when they've been steeped in frustration for a long time. When should they find you?
Excellent question, Lisa. I often get people first coming to me when their child's already 8 years old and has very severe behaviors, like hitting themselves, hitting others, and then they think, oh, now we need to go do ABA because it's about reducing problem behavior. We do reduce problem behavior, but honestly, the best way to reduce problem behavior is through teaching new behaviors that help them through life. And often problem behaviors are just stemming from not being able to communicate, not being able to play with others. It basically comes down to that. So as soon as your child is starting to have any signs of delay, such as speech or repetitive behaviors, immediately, the most important thing, and I tell this to every family, please go and get a diagnostic assessment conducted by a licensed psychologist. The school document that typically is done is great and it's wonderful, and I'm glad that the school does that, but that will not work when you are needing to get applied behavior analysis. Typically, Medicaid or other insurances do not take that document. So that's one of the questions I go through when just explaining any families that reach out to me. I'm like, hey, this is the difference of the type of document that you need. So as soon as you start seeing those delays, immediately contact a licensed psychologist that can do a diagnostic assessment for autism. And once you have that paperwork, get in right away, as early as you possibly can, because there's so much research out there that show children that get high intensive ABA at a young age can a lot of times fade out of that programming and then are able to go to school with very, very minimal supports. And then they are able to make friends and have a less difficult life. And so sooner the better.
There you go. Exactly. Early intervention, quick learning. Well, you mentioned right before the break, Amber, that you'd started a global foundation. And the one thing that comes to mind when you say that you're so passionate about this business, and Triangle ABA, we know you're going to be wildly successful because you're following that purpose, you're following that mission. So tell us a little bit about the foundation that you founded and started.
Oh, well, thank you. It's the Global Behavior and Wellness Alliance, and its mission and focus is to be able to help subsets of people that wouldn't be able to receive applied behavior analysis with that because they don't have access to medical insurance. And that's a lot of the rest of the world outside of the US. Most of them, even if they had medical insurance, they wouldn't cover applied behavior analysis. And often a lot of people don't even have medical insurance. So being able to reach out and be able to help those families is very important for specifically, even in my case, an example of my own life. And typically that's how I usually start missions and go for things is I actually lived overseas. So I lived in India for 5 years, and I actually first tried to get my son treatment in India, and it was very difficult. So I knew that one day I would be back and I would be able to do something about it. So the main focus is actually more on parent training in that model, and then training up clinicians with some of the same teaching that we would do here in the US. We at Triangle ABA, we have our own curriculum that we teach our staff that come in and they're the direct therapists. So that training can be at least done overseas, so we can train up people that would know that and be able to help support the families. And we are doing adventure trips. So any other clinician, even from another company that is really passionate, and maybe they live in Idaho or something, but they would really like to be able to join us and go over to Indonesia and be able to help. This can join our adventure trips, be able to make a difference overseas, and be able to change the world. I mean, with access to applied behavior analysis.
Sure.
I know that's probably not still enough information, but I'm happy to answer any more in regards to that if that's not clear.
And you can get to that foundation site through the Triangle ABA website, correct?
That is correct. There's a tab for it.
Okay.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Listen, Amber, I had a child who was misdiagnosed with autism when he was 2.
Oh,
So, but it turned out that wasn't the case. There was a developmental delay that resolved pretty quickly. So that's why I'm very familiar with this entire scope of do it sooner than later. And what can you say to parents, though, who are waffling, who are saying, oh, I don't know, I don't know. I mean, how would you encourage them to pursue the right resource, or any resource for that matter?
man, that's such a hard, yeah, it is difficult. I mean, especially when I talk to a lot of families on the phone, unfortunately, the internet is riddled with a bunch of stuff about ABA that
Yes.
makes them a little bit scared. And I understand why they would be nervous from what is posted out there. I think one of the factors is, and I can't say that I did this well, but I think I at least have the right mindset now. Just because your child would get diagnosed with autism does not make them a lesser individual. They're still amazing and unique. So typically that's usually what holds families from going back and forth of being like, I don't even first want to get the diagnosis. Then when figuring out, do I want to do applied behavior analysis, or I just want to do what the school gives me, which is like speech and OT. What I tend to tell families is, what would you do if you wanted to learn an instrument and join a band within a month? Would you go once a week for lessons to learn to play guitar? Or would you do it every single day? Because you know you're going to be really wanting to join this band and do the thing. Your child is developmentally delayed. That is really what autism typically comes down to, right? They're delayed in a lot of different areas. So if you're delayed, you need to really spend the time and practice the skills a lot to catch up with your peers and then not being having difficulties. So that would be one factor. I always say, like, this is the time to going back and forth. And I know often families, and I had the same thing too, it's hard when you have always seen your child's dream and thought process for their life be to go to school and to have that world. And then no, now this changed. Now we're going to ABA. This is not the same. This is not the story I had, and other families are not going to be able to relate with me. And I don't want to let go of that dream. But at least at Triangle ABA, I always say we actually do have a school readiness program. We send home crafts, and we have a very much community chance for the families to hang out, so you don't miss out on what you would have had in that school environment. I can't say for all across the rest of the country that you could access that. You can at Triangle ABA, but look to find a place that celebrates neurodivergence, emphasizes the family being a part of community, and is really focused on making sure they have the skills needed to transition potentially back into school.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's really important, because when you have a child who gets a diagnosis like this, the feeling of isolation can be overwhelming.
Yes.
But when you seek out support, you build another community, or
Yeah.
you access another community that is really loving and really supportive and totally busts that in isolation.
Yeah.
So,
Amber, tell us about your son. Tell what's he up to? He's 13, so what's he doing these days?
He's doing great stuff. He's enjoying things like any other kid would be. He's playing Fortnite. He is having actually Fortnite parties at my house sometimes. He's doing all sorts of things. He's actually excelling really well in school. He has all A's and B's now, can orient himself to be able to study on his own. I'm so proud of him. He's doing
That's
really, really well. And yeah, he's an artist, and he now has a dream to be able to create or like work for Disney, or actually I probably said that wrong. Maybe DreamWorks. He actually said, I don't know if I want to do Disney. I want to maybe do DreamWorks and, design. I'm doing a terrible job describing. What is that job? Not a cartoonist, but you know what I'm trying
like
to
an
say.
illustrator.
Animator. He wants to be an
animator.
animator.
Oh,
Animator.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Animation.
We got it.
He is really good, very creative. So yeah, that is what he's doing. And the other point when you're saying like families going back and forth and trying to figure out where to go, another big thing is how they treat their employees. That's usually I'm planning on making an ebook soon that'll be going out on my website. So for top things that families should be looking for, because this mission is just not just Triangle ABA. I want families to find good places. There are other good places other than my company, and I know that.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the Global Behavioral Wellness Alliance, the nonprofit, is that I'm partnering, trying to gather and part the alliance's other good clinician-owned places that care about high quality, bringing them together and allowing them to promote the fact that they're a part of the nonprofit on their website, so we can band together and make sure good quality is happening for everybody. But factor to ask when you go into any place is to figure out, what do they do with their frontline employees? We treat our one-to-one staff well. We care, and I could go into more depth, but you weren't asking for the question. I just really wanted to talk about that because it's a big factor. Parents would think doesn't matter, but it actually does. They're the ones that spend all the time with your child.
Yep.
So understanding how well they're treated is very, very important, because they're going to be either enthusiastic and highly involved or not. At some places, if they don't take good care of those staff, they're going to burn out, and then you'll be getting a new therapist.
Yep.
And then treatment doesn't stay consistent and all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
So.
Amber, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. It was better than good. It was great.
Energetic.
Yeah, very energetic.
A lot of info. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get it all
No,
in there.
you did a great
It's
job.
good.
You really did. Can you tell the audience, the viewing audience, how to get in touch with you and Triangle ABA and the new International Alliance as well?
Sure. You can go on triangleaba.com to be able to sign up and do, if you are in North Carolina and want to receive treatment. And then there is a tab for the Global Behavior and Wellness Alliance as well. If you're a clinician that is somewhere else and you still want to join and be able to help make a difference overseas, or maybe someone wants to help donate because they saw how ABA helped their family, and now someone like me who their child is no longer in ABA, but I want to still make a difference for other families. I know there's other people out there that would like that. So that is the way. You could also email me if you have some serious questions that you want. It's amber@triangleaba.com. And that's the main way to get a hold of me.
Great.
Perfect.
Sometimes people are put in your life for a reason, and
Always.
Amber was. Thanks, Amber.
All right,
Yeah.
so we are wrapping up this episode of The Advocates, where we champion good people doing good. Thank you, Amber, for all the good you're doing. Keep it up. Everyone, reach out to Amber if you need. She is a great resource for information. And to the rest of our viewing audience, I am Lisa Manioki. This is Mark Iorio, and we will see you next Wednesday with a new episode of The Advocates.